For all you guys that like to keep things really clean, there is something called a snake. This is a snake. It's a box with all the inputs on it so that you can run all those wires into one big wire back to your mixer. A lot of churches or clubs will have this attached. It'll be in the room already. That's a neat way to make things nice and clean for setup and tear down as well. So let me tell you a couple of things about loudspeakers so you'll understand what's inside one and what they do. We found out a long time ago that all of us hear differently. Like I said in the beginning, you may or may not think this sounds good. You might think that it's a little dark, like it needs some, I don't know, mid-range or high frequency. Maybe like this, a little bit more of that, like this. Now, maybe that sounds a little better to you. Maybe it sounds a little more like me. We all hear different, but when we were cavemen, all of our ears were tuned to babies crying and us being able to yell at each other. That's why when we hear vocals, we want to kind of turn the mid-range down. We like hearing the low end and the high end because we don't hear it so well. I'll give you an example. Every one of you has seen those kids go down the street with a truck and it's boom, 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 boom. They love that sound. It's because it's not the same sound that their ears are tuned to. A loudspeaker and our job as sound people is to try to make this as transparent as possible. We want me to sound just like me, out of here, only louder. That's our job. So inside of a loudspeaker, they figured out that you can't have just one driver, one output device. If you just use one speaker, it could sound rather dark, a little like this. There. That's the woofer by itself, the 15-inch driver that's in there by itself. So they figured, better get a little high frequency in there too, so you can hear the mid-range as well. Here's some secrets. Every one of you who can see the front of this loudspeaker are going to hear it very well. For those of you that are all the way over there, you're not listening to the loudspeaker. You may very well be hearing sound off that wall. You're probably hearing something off this wall. You know what I mean? So here in the room, it's helping us that we've got a room that sound can bounce around in and come back. Any of you do sound outside? The minute we take this sound system outside, it's going to be quiet. You'll go, who turned it down? How come you turned it all the way down? We don't have the room to help us out. So that's the reason why doing sound inside is easier for us in a lot of ways than it is outside. Now, the drawback is when somebody's speaking in this room and the sound system's too loud. These people will be annoyed from having to listen to it bounce off the walls. They don't hear it coming from the stage anymore. They think they're listening to the wall. After a while, your brain plays funny tricks on you and tells you you're listening to the wall. You're not listening to that guy anymore. And after a while, it's like a baby crying in church. It runs you nuts. And you'll eventually go, you know, it didn't sound good to me. I wished it sounded better. So the first rule of placing your sound system is make sure that it's facing all of your audience. So in the case of loudspeakers, you'll always see what they have for a dispersion pattern or the amount of coverage. And they'll give it to you in degrees, just like 90 degrees, you know, 90 by 40. That's what this is. It's always in the spec sheets. That tells you how big of an area it'll cover. Maybe if you wanted to throw a lot further, if you wanted to go a really long way, you could get one with narrower coverage. That's part of the reason why there's so many different kinds of speakers up here. Also, for all of you who are tired of carrying something this heavy, maybe you don't need a big woofer. If it's only for speaking or only for a ukulele, you don't need a big, huge speaker. Maybe one of these smaller ones better for you to carry. It's easier. But the first rule, aim it at your crowd. Second rule, closer. This is the same rule that I gave you for microphones. Closer you can put your sound system to your audience, the louder it'll appear to them. Now this is the hardest part for people to understand, to think about in sound system planning and design. In order for you to think that it's twice as loud, I'd need 10 times the power. That's the weirdest thing. People are like, well, it should just be twice as much, right? Because it's twice as loud. It's a 10-time rule, or logarithmically. Just doubling the power, it only makes it slightly louder. So, for you that thinks, well, we need to get a louder PA, you're going to have to buy a lot more amplifier and a lot more speaker to do the job. So I'm trying to help you with what you already have. Is this bothering you guys, that noisiness? Listen, hear that handling noise? Me doing that? Let me show you how to get rid of it. These mixers have a high-pass filter. High-pass, meaning it will pass everything above high-pass, 80 cycles. If I put that in, now the noise isn't as much. The other reason you want to have an 80 cycle high-pass on this is if I drop this microphone, it won't damage that speaker. So if you've got high-pass filters on your mixer, put them on the vocal mics. Don't put them on your kick drum, because you want that low-end thump, right? Some speakers use this plug. And this is the part where I preach a little. This isn't good, because it's too easy for you to go grab a guitar cable and plug it from your power amp to your speaker. And you think, well, what's the big deal? I just passed all these cables around. You had your chance to look at them. Look at the size of the little connectors and cables that are in there. And I just told you a power amplifier is amplifying. It's making more power. Use a speaker cable, man. There's a speaker cable. Something with some wire in it. Now this one even has a fat 1/4-inch plug. But it's written right on cables now. It'll say, microphone cable. It says it right on this cable. And this one actually tells you it says speaker cable. But the thing that I hate the worst about these 1/4-inch plugs is when people use them on stage, on their monitor speaker. And they'll plug them in, right like that. And somebody will always step right here. And they'll break that right off, right at it. I hate that. It's the worst for me. So, if you can afford it, get this new type of cable. These are called speak-on cables. Most of the new speakers have this connector. And the nice thing about this one is it's pretty solid. You don't have to worry it's going to break, like that 1/4-inch plug. So, listen, it locks. So we know it's in there. This one, are you sure it's all the way plugged in? We're not sure, So that's the reason why you want to get a better speaker cable. The other reason is, I'm sure that this is not a guitar cable, right?
Can't mistake that.
Now, just a couple things. All of you know what this is. The plug on your amp or on your mixer is your plug. You'll notice it only has 2 prongs. I cut the other one off. Any of you got plugs like this laying around? Get rid of this. This will kill somebody. I don't want to preach and I don't want to sound like a scary guy, but too many of us get shocked doing this stuff. Whether it's rain, there's somebody back there. I'll tell you a story of one of the guys that plays with Kiss did a sound check where they were outside, he's as sweaty as I am, walked up with his guitar on, and he touched his lips to the microphone. The paramedics came, he was gone for 2 minutes. He completed the path to ground because I got rid of the hum, man, I got rid of the hum. That's how he did it. Then he's making these tiny, cheap little cables carry the safety of his whole sound system.